Welcome back across space and time to a very special realm of the internet in a quadrant not far off from your own. I am talking about our quadrant, Captain's Quadrant, and I am the captain of this maiden voyage, Captain Joe Dove, and with me is always my helmsman, my number one, my ensign, Jason.
Good morning, sir, or good evening, wherever you are in the world.
Yes. It's about evening here, even though there's quite a lot of light here in the home, but it's always good to be here with you to talk about all things Star Trek on the go forward.
Episode 5.
Can you believe we got 5 of these done already?
5. I don't know, but is it halfway through the season, basically?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like 10 to 13. So, if it's 10, we're halfway there.
Yeah, fantastic. And I suppose we're not going to muck around. Shall I get press my buttons and get started with the episode summary?
Let's do the episode summary. Make it so.
Fantastic.
All right. Picard discovers an important person from his past may be an integral to the divergence in the timeline. Q continues his manipulation of the timeline, taking an interest in Dr. Adam Soong. Seven and Raffi attempt a daring rescue of Rios, while Jurati faces the consequences of her deal with the Borg Queen.
What happened in that episode?
What's that?
So a lot happens in this episode.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is a jam-packed episode. It's one of my favorites, especially, let's go in sequence. I tend to jump around a lot. And
that's right.
Pull my ADD in.
So we've done episode summary. It's time to move into the
pros and cons. Let's jump right into it. For me, the biggest pro of this episode was seeing Brent Spiner once again reprise some iteration of Soong.
He's literally their genetics are pretty tight, aren't they?
They're super tight.
They all look similar.
Yeah,
I think this is the 5th version he's played.
Yes.
5th member of the Soong dynasty.
Yes, because Archer had one,
played.
Right?
Yeah,
he had to deal with one.
But Adam's a tricky guy, isn't he? He's got some things going on.
Yeah, I love the interaction with him and Q. That was by far my favorite on-screen reaction, because we used to seeing John DeLance and Brent Spiner, but Brent is usually Data, and their chemistry is fantastic. But even as different character for Brent, the chemistry was fantastic between the two.
It was, and I found interesting that the power dynamic normally is Q is ahead of the game. He's the strong one. He's the confident one.
Right.
But I felt with this one, Q came off a bit desperate, because he is desperate at the moment.
He is.
And Adam Soong took a very confident, aggressive stance with him. Obviously, he didn't know the power of Q.
Correct.
Or doesn't really even know he's Q. But yeah, all that scene at the cafe, I suppose.
Right.
Their first introduction, and then obviously the scene inside his laboratory were both excellent, I thought.
And it was an interesting way. Yeah, it's very. I don't know if you've ever seen the show American Horror Story, but it's very American Horror Story the way they're doing this, where the same characters from the season are reprising different roles, but within the realm of the roles that normally from the first
season.
Not
unusual for Star Trek. We've seen that throughout the decades, that they have actors play variants or alternate versions or other members in a family timeline.
Right. But so that was the big pro for me of overall in this episode. And I really, the second big pro for me was the Jurati Borg Queen. That was the big cliffhanger for this episode.
Yeah, that is the cliffhanger, which is a con for me.
Really? Well,
not what happened in the scene. I'm just over them finishing the show halfway through scenes. This is now the 3rd episode in a row where we're right in the middle of the scene and they cut it.
Oh, okay.
And to me, it's just like, it just says to me at the end of this, it's really one movie. It's one story, but the way they do it, I'm struggling with. We were just about to get into something really meaty, and you've pulled it in. But the scene itself, you're referring to the Agnes
the
being,
touch. The touch.
Yeah.
You've got the touch.
Well, it doesn't surprise me, because let's be honest, Agnes, as proven in season 1, and we've spoken about this before, is very open to manipulation and influence. And you can see the Borg Queen even in her last moments.
Yes, tapping
Um,
into that.
But the previous scene to that, the fact that she gets that old shotgun out,
Yeah.
and wow, pretty horrific for a Star Trek scene. Like,
Yeah, that's
that she's
very
covered
graphic.
in blood.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry, it's not
Yeah,
my blood. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah. It
it's
definitely took a
really
twist.
dark.
Very, very.
And that's what Agnes brings to the show, I think, is this polar opposites about her, this lightness and sweetness, yet this capacity to do things that are very dark and disturbing,
Mm-hmm.
as she did in season 1 and as she did in this episode. So I like the real big juxtaposition in her character with that, which I like.
Right.
I've gone, but 7:30 in the morning here, so forgive me if I'm
bit
not
foggy.
awake properly. But
It's all good.
yeah, it's what did you think about? And I don't know if I'm happy with this or not, but where is he? Where's his name? Rios.
Rios.
Rios, his storyline, how they ended that.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
ended that
haven't
pretty
ended it,
quickly.
but how they did it in the episode. What did you think of that scene?
That was a con for me. I think they wrapped it up. It was the very beginning of the episode. They wrapped it up super quick. They had this long build up, and it just went, all right, we're going to break out. My guy's going to knock this guy out.
Yeah.
I'm going to give him a high five, and we're going to go.
Yeah, and therefore I found this whole thing, I found his whole storyline frustrating because they tied it up so quick.
Yeah.
Because in previous episodes, we were getting invested in his journey, in the fact that he'd met this, this doctor in this kind of, underground clinic, and the whole fact that he's been jailed, and the fact that they're dealing with the immigration issues and things like that. And then it's kind of like, yep, we're out.
Yeah, we're done. Don't worry, this is all
Thanks,
handled.
brother. See you later. High five. We're out.
Yeah, that was a con for me. I felt
and I'm like, well, why did we do this? So really,
where's the
wasted
payoff
my
here?
time. That's a filler. That whole storyline, that last couple of episodes, was just filler material.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'd prefer them to cut the episodes down and keep it tighter than serve that kind of thing to us, because it is, as an audience member, I'm like, oh, come on, guys. Like, if we didn't need that, I mean, if that whole storyline for Rios wasn't in the show, has it affected events in any way?
Like, what is he going to take away from that altercation and those interactions that's going to improve him as a person in the future?
Yeah, because
nothing.
The Rios that we get in season 2 is a very put together. He has now he's
the captain.
Things are sorted and settled. He's focused.
Yeah,
and so where does that character, from the character story point, his character arc, where does that? What are we going to see from Rios from the beginning of this season to the end of this season? What's his journey? Because I feel like what we should have seen in this season is that journey of being the rogue, kind of standalone Han Solo type,
right,
to being somebody that accepts responsibility enough that he is the captain of the Stargazer. I mean,
correct.
That's what I would have liked to see, that kind of growth. So yeah. The relationship between 7 of 9
and Raffi
and Raffi
is great. That's a good dynamic.
I like that. I will give that a pro. I definitely think that's a pro.
And how did you feel about Raffi seeing Elnor, Space Legolas?
I like that. I like seeing the fact that she is emotionally damaged because of that death.
Yes.
And she isn't ready to move on yet.
Right.
Which is her driving motivation throughout this season.
Yep.
Well, what we're discovering is her character arc is her, coming to face her own inability to let things go. I mean, she was a very strong, well, we don't really see it, but we get a sense of it from the first season, that she was a very put together, confident, member of the Federation, you know?
Yeah.
And certainly was a real put together. And here, this season, we're seeing her emotionally break down.
Right.
Which is making her vulnerable, but it's also giving 7 and 9 an opportunity to reconnect with her and help her heal. So, yeah,
it's an interesting dynamic, and I'm here for it. It's an
interesting dynamic, absolutely. But the big dynamic I want to talk about is Picard, and him coming up to Harlan.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
and the fact that she is the Watcher. How do you feel about that?
That was a con for me. I feel like you too.
A little bit, because I can't figure out is why does she look like Laris?
Right. That's what I'm saying.
There's no real explanation on that.
None whatsoever.
Why?
Hey, we're
is
going to
that?
reuse this actress, and we're going to have a reason for it. I'm sure it's going to come together later
It's
on.
got to, doesn't it?
But right
I
now,
like the idea of the Watcher. I like her idea of being, very finite focused on a person.
right.
And as she, of course, we're going to talk about the reference where she references, where they reference Gary 7 from the original Star Trek episode, The Watcher.
Oh,
That she is actually part of that. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I missed that. Okay, so you.
Yeah.
I did not
Gary
catch
7 was part of in Assignment Earth.
Mm.
In the Kirk's Enterprise, cross paths with the human called Gary.
So that's
Gary 7.
That's an Easter egg for the original.
Yeah,
series.
and she nodded like, yeah, I know of that dude, but we all have different missions and we all have different kind of tasks that we've got to undertake.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, obviously the introduction of Picard's great grandmother. Yeah. So and I will say this is a pro. I like the fact that she is at the cusp of getting on that mission, the Europa mission, and she has zero confidence in herself.
I do
She's
like that.
Emotionally fragile in one of the most important things she's ever done.
And it happens to be the most important thing that her entire generations have ever done. But there's one interesting fact that that kind of throws off Nemesis, because when Picard and his clone are interacting, he's like, I want to know about us. Are we all explorers? Are we all Starfleet? He's like, no, I'm the first one to ever leave Earth.
Yeah, we were not. And that was being referenced in. You're right. That was Nemesis.
Nemesis.
Yeah, you're right. He said it's one of the only. So I think they've kind of
So we have a small window.
If you want to associate this episode with a movie, to me, and in a way, this has got again very reminds me of First Contact quite a bit. The whole time traveling, the whole where they're at. Now they're in a situation where they've got to go and get somebody, the reluctant hero being that we've got to, in First Contact, it was about getting him to do the first warp space mission.
Correct.
And now we've got to basically do the same thing.
Yeah. She's got to do the first up and going to Europa.
So if I see them in the ship with her, I'm going to be pretty annoyed, because that always annoyed me about First Contact.
Really?
Well, there's continuity issues there. So if you've got Riker and Deanna Troi in the ship with him as he's doing his first war, why were they never mentioned in the history books?
Yeah, because even when
done that,
that's true. Because even when Gabriel Bell, when Cisco went back in time during those riots, and they're in the history books, and Nod says, "Oh, look, Nod, boy, Gabriel Bell looks a lot like Captain Cisco." Like they even mentioned that, so that was a nice, But that's the writing of Ira Bear, I think.
But this is, I'm glad you mentioned it, because we are leading towards that, aren't we? We are leading towards those riots. Again, there's heavy nods to Deep Space Nine for our 7. So the number one being the club, and the "Fly Me to the Moon" song.
Oh my God, that was such a nice touch.
Which is just love it.
Chef's kiss. That was a great pro.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was
How about the little
really
cameo from a different time of time traveler, but it was great. She'd already directed that episode.
Yes, Leah Thompson was in it.
Leah Thompson.
Yeah, that was great.
Which I really, really liked.
That was a great
Dr.
cameo.
Valissi Rashenko.
Yes.
And remember, there's a link to the Rashenkos as well, because the Rashenkos, Worf's parents.
Foster parents, right? Yeah, I thought so.
Exactly. Yeah. So there must be a link along there, which I like because it's a little nod, but I don't like because it feels like it's going into the Star Wars problem. And in the Star Wars problem, what I call the Star Wars problem, is a giant galaxy, but everyone's related to each other. So this giant galaxy, but everything's so small. And I wish they kind of don't do too much of that.
Well, think of it this way, Jason. We're on a giant planet, and you and I are essentially the showrunners of our own, a very similar concept. Yeah. You know what I mean? So
Well, I don't know. I just hope they I love the little nods, but I like the nods when they're done, like playing music or the background,
That
or
was
the
very
scene on the
sweet.
bus, or the skulls that we got to see. I love that
Mhm.
kind of thing, which was
Yeah.
but overall, yeah, like I have problems with maybe from the storytelling perspective, but what we're actually getting in these episodes, it's still a big pro at this point.
Yeah. I
I'm
felt
invested. I'm halfway through, and I'm definitely going to follow this all the way through to see how this story wraps itself up. So,
yeah.
because we've still got the big mystery of Q.
I was just gonna say we've got a lot of mysteries. We got the not only the the fact that Q's lost his abilities and it
Mm.
has something to do with time itself. So
Yeah,
that's very interesting.
yeah,
And we're gonna have to see how. Well, now we know it's kind of the die is cast, so to speak. Another nod to DS9
yeah,
as to how Dr. Jurati becomes the Borg Queen. And that was one of my future speculations, but let's not throw that
yeah.
card
Let's
up
do
just
that.
yet.
Let's move into future
To future speculations,
speculations.
yes.
Ah, the great Gary.
Oh, the best.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that's a big one.
Yeah.
That I think that is the most. I think one of the coolest things that are going to happen with this show. Go ahead.
Yes, and she is, and it was a speculation from mine for either last episode or the episode
Mm,
before, but I believe she is going to be the new Borg Queen. And I also believe that this is the Borg Queen's way out of death because she can imprint herself on the next person, and then
yeah.
that person's now the new Borg Queen.
And it is an easier track because she's already kind of imprinted a lot of her knowledge and memory into her, and
Yep.
now she's done it with the nanobites. And I think it's great because you know what, Alison Peel, I can already see her in my mind looking like the Borg Queen.
Oh
In
man.
fact, I'll go for a future speculation again. That's her at the beginning of the episode
Yes.
of season one.
Season one. Yeah. I
Sorry,
totally.
season two. Episode
Yes.
one,
Yes. I know what you
season
mean.
two.
Yes. Yes.
That's
Yes.
her in the helmet.
Yeah, I
You know?
agree. I agree. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
my future speculate. I totally agree. And a lot of
Yeah.
people online. I've jumped into the full world of the Twitterverse
Yeah. Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed that of Star Trek. So if you're on Twitter, be sure to follow me and follow us. He's Pop Culture Spread. I'm to be seen, or it's
Yep.
to be seen. And we're just talking so much Star Trek. It's unbelievable and it's a lot of fun. So join us in all of that conversation
Great.
on Twitter. But yeah, I can totally see that. Another future speculation is I think, now that Q has basically given the cure for Dr. Soong's daughter, I also believe that he's going to dive into the full genetics and create a super Soong.
Well, is this? Yeah, does this have great effect? Because we're 39 years, I believe, away from the time that they were in first contact. So in the next 39 years from 2024 onwards, we have World War III.
Correct.
And the eugenics wars, correct?
Yeah, the eugenics war is after World War III.
Is it?
I think so.
I thought that was the cause of it.
Oh, is that the cause of World War III?
I thought it was anyway.
Oh,
But we got problems continuity-wise because the eugenics wars were in the night. Actually, no, they were before because they were in the 1990s, weren't they? And then, so we got apocalypse coming up. So the place gets nuked. So I wonder if the events of what Q does is trying to do is going to lead to that. I mean, because it happens no matter what, doesn't it?
Right. So yeah, that's 92 to 96.
Is eugenics wars?
Is the eugenic war,
and then when the nuclear holocaust is what 20,
World War
30,
III, so
2040s?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So look, it is really interesting because it feels like what Q's doing at the moment is moving it towards that future where Adam Soong is this giant, like this figurehead of hate and fascism, because that's what we get in previous season, with that shot of the giant holographic statue of Adam Soong.
Right.
Talking about, the fact that humans are the number one species and things like that.
Yeah.
So and that's the fact. Q is basically dealing with the next Hitler at this point.
Yes.
So I'm very curious to see how that's going to play itself out.
Is this going to be a very dark ending? Because the show has taken a deep dark dive.
Well, from a storytelling perspective, if we know we got 3 seasons of Picard, and so if you imagine that each season is an act of a movie, we have 3 acts in a movie.
Yeah.
The first act, you introduce all your characters. That's generally what you do in the first act of a movie. The second act of the movie, you put him in the worst possible position.
Yep.
And then the third one, you get him out of it.
Yeah.
So in saying that, like Empire Strikes Back second is a lot darker.
Yeah. Yep.
So I would assume that we are. I think you're 100% correct. That Picard season 2 will end in a place that is not good for a lot of these characters.
No. So my ultimate future speculation is we're going to get the Empire ending. It's going to be a really dark ending. And it's probably ultimately going to be the Jurati transition to the Borg Queen.
Yeah.
And
it is this, and again, you're talking about darkness, how this will end. This is like, my mind goes straight to Deep Space Nine again, because they did that a lot in Deep Space Nine. Yeah. They didn't hold back by delving into the darkness of this universe. And yeah, definitely, I think this season has a way more to do with Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
On a sub level.
Right.
Than any other Star Trek like show.
Period.
Point. So
period.
No, absolutely fantastic. So it's a thumbs up for me for this episode.
Same here. Yeah, absolutely. This was incredible, and I can't wait to see how this all plays out. And I really enjoy seeing Dr. Soong and Dodge, his daughter with this illness. It was a nice way to bring that actress back into the fray of the season. Because I was wondering, it's like
Spiner though, let's just take a moment just to
give him
how great an actor Brett
absolutely
Spiner is.
Absolutely.
He really was the standout in this episode.
Yes. And he was ready to throw down with Q. He's like, you know what? Are you some underground internet Nazi? I have to deal with all these. Fantastic.
It's a real don't fuck with me attitude.
Yeah. I loved it. I was here for all of it. So I'm so excited.
100%. So episode, do you know anything about because I generally stay away from the previews of the following week. Do you know anything at this point?
I really don't. The teaser that I did see just was basically them and the interaction with Picard's great grandmother.
Yeah.
So that's what it's going to be.
Which is an inevitable scene.
Right. So that's kind of like, okay, yeah, that's expected. But I did hear a bit of Star Trek news. More shows are getting greenlit. Section 31 is going to be
the rumored Section 31, which very different type of concept for Star, because that has to be really dark too. We know Section 31 don't do things that are always morally or ethically correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that show is officially going to be filming. So get ready for a lot more Star Trek. And I also heard now this is a rumor, so I can't see Star Trek news, but a rumor is that this after season 3 of Picard, they're going to get a spinoff.
Right.
So officially. So I'm wondering if they're going to introduce other characters and
maybe, but if it was one of the cast that was spinning off, who do you think's got the most potential to spin off to their own show?
Rios.
Yes,
for sure.
100%.
100%. Yeah. Rios, it's got to be Rios and Elnor.
And he's got this strength and this way about him that you want to watch him as a character. You want to see where he takes things. And I like the way he makes decisions. There's intelligence there, but he's still got the emotional connection with things. So,
connection.
You don't know what he's going to do because he's clever, but he might do something because it's what his heart's telling him, not what his head's telling him.
Yeah. So I'm excited for it. This is going to be an epic couple of years for Star Trek, and I'm so happy.
Yeah. The one thing I do want though, before we go, is I really want a show of basically the 2400s, early 2400s, where we're getting not Star Trek: The Next Generation,
before that,
but a new crew in the kind of Picard future when he was still Admiral before he.
So you want that Lost generation?
I want that
Enterprise
Lost kind of
BC. Yeah.
Oh, and one other rumor before we go. I read that Discovery, who's currently in the 32nd century, we're going to be seeing a very new, unusual Enterprise coming up.
Oh, well, it's probably that new design that I detest. Have you watched Discovery at all? Or?
Oh, but I have. Yeah. I haven't watched. I'm not completely up to date, but I don't like the floating.
nacelles.
with the disconnection of the ships. I don't kind of like that visual style. So,
yeah. I liked how the Voyager J looked. Thought that was pretty cool. And I don't like the Voyager design at all. But that one looked cool. I was like, oh, that looks cool.
Yeah.
But some of the other
more
ships
angular, isn't it?
Yeah.
So absolutely.
Going to be very interesting. And then last but not least, before we head off, I have to say I am really digging what they're going to be doing with Strange New Worlds. I don't know if you've been watching these teaser trailers that they've been dropping.
The introduction of characters.
Yes.
Uhura and Spock and
Helmut.
I haven't seen that one.
Watch that one. That's very cool. Yeah. So that's
my big hope. Show. Star Trek Strange New Worlds is my big hope to go back to a format, because I'm an old man and I don't like change, of episodic television.
That's what it looks like. That's exactly what we're going
that we have a story, a mystery that we resolve in 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
And then we can move on to the next adventure, because it's not that I don't like watching things like culminate in a long story. It's just like there's so many, it's infinite amount of great stories you can tell in Star Trek. And I think it's a waste of opportunities to tell really one big story rather than doing 13 stories or 10 stories, and I think we will get that for sure.
And the other thing that's positive about doing an episodic is you get a really good connection with each of your characters.
You do.
Because they're doing a good job with both this, to me, with Discovery. I know we have differences there, but Discovery and Picard, I think they're doing a great job of, even though we have a very short season of 13 episodes or 10 episodes, depending on the show. Or the season writers, but we're getting a good job of rush connection with them.
Yeah.
Whereas an episodic, we love Next Generation and we love the original series because we got 4, 6, 7 years with these characters, and we got episodes that focused on each particular species or character.
Yeah.
So I
love the fact they got a big budget and it looks great and all that. But some of the greatest Star Trek episodes, in my experience, were intimate.
Yes.
Stories happen just in a few rooms and long conversations, struggling with the human experience throughout their journey and looking at things intimately. That's kind of I do feel that although Star Trek Strange New Worlds will be very action adventure because they're selling like that, I do feel that we are going to get a lot of those really ethical and moral challenges being brought up that they'll have to kind of go through. So
I can't
wish they hadn't introduced Kirk so quickly.
Yeah, that was weird. But he's not Captain Kirk. He's
I know, but season 4 or 5, bring him in.
Down the road would have been good. But everybody loves Kirk. That's why they want.
But you're also launching a 4th Star Trek film with Chris Pine returning.
That's true.
So we could potentially have dual Kirks.
Yeah.
We'll see how that plays out.
Yeah. Well, Star Trek multiverse. Here we are. Well, I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up for us here on the Captain's Quadrant, where we're talking all things Star Trek. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and give us a rating of 5 on Apple Podcast. And with exciting phrase for all our podcast worlds, we are now in the realms of Amazon Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Podbean. So if you're a Podbeaner, if you're a iHeartRadio enthusiast, or if you're one of those originals that enjoy being on Amazon, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, we are on all of them. So if you prefer the audio versions of this episode and all other episodes, please feel free to subscribe, rate, and download us on those platforms. So it's so much exciting news. And if you want to see, if you're listening to the podcast version and you want to check it out in visual format where you can see our beautiful faces, please, by all means.
Talk for yourself, mate.
You're a handsome devil. Don't undershirt yourself, Ensign. By all means, please check us out in Spectrum Sanctorum and subscribe to that YouTube channel. We are doing unboxings and some of the other things related to Star Trek. And there's going to be a lot of future projects that come out there that you may enjoy. So please subscribe to us all on all of these things. Talk to us. We're very friendly people on the internet. And I am going to just say, let us roll out.
Catch you later.